Thomas Goldstein Associates, executive business consultant firm. He is bullish on Seattle. Yes, you are. Let's do the bad side and then give me the good side. The bad side.
John, you're bullish. You're bullish on the town too, aren't you?
Listen, Tom.
Tom.
I want to believe, Thomas, I want to believe, but I have seen what has happened to this wonderful city over the last 10, 12 years, right? The decline, I don't like the city council was in there. I do believe that the people have spoken. I am bullish on the new group that is in there. I think the mayor is better than we've had in a long time. So I'll give you all of that. I want to be, nobody wants to be negative, right? As Winston Churchill said, you only have one choice, and that is to be optimistic, Thomas. So I'm with you on that. But let's just talk about the reality before we get into what you think people should be doing. So the city council has demanded that restaurants pay everybody $20 an hour. So $20 an hour for the new guy, but that, of course, means the other guys that have been there want more money, so then it just continues to go up. Businesses need to keep wages at about 35%. As a consultant, you would always advise that. But they're not going to be able to do that. So they have two choices. They can raise the price of all of their food and hope to keep the same number of customers, or they can start to cut staff, replace staff with new innovative business robots, or just cut hours. So that's the reality that all these businesses are going to be facing because the city council has deemed housing is too expensive. So let's force everybody to pay people more money. Are we okay with that?
I think that's a fair premise.
Okay. So now, because that is the reality, and these businesses, probably a pretty good percentage of them, especially these mom and pops, will not be able to compete. They don't have, other places they can spread the losses around and even out the revenue. So we will see more of these begin to go away. So you believe, Thomas, that we as a city, we as citizens of this city that love Seattle and the uniqueness of Seattle need to do something. What would you prescribe for the people?
Let's back up for a second. Have you ever been to Wichita?
Only in my mind. Only in my mind.
Okay. I had dinner in Wichita not too long ago with some friends, and the waiter came over, gave me the bill, and I was taking some friends out who I really love. They have Seattle connections. They're Shockers, Wichita State. The bill came over to me, and I looked up at the waiter. I said, "No, I want the bill for the whole table." And he's like, "That's it." And I was like, oh my God, I've become so normalized to Seattle where the prices are so crazy.
Yes.
And I think what we need to do is listen a little more carefully to the proprietors who run these restaurants, who run these businesses, and also give them a little more agency. They might want to do things differently than we're telling them how to do them. And that's where we failed on the tip credit. We actually didn't listen to people carefully enough because different people want to do different things. Yes. And had we listened, actually, I think there's an opportunity. I think, John, after this radio show, some people are going to realize that we could do something differently on this issue. And Joy Hollingsworth and some other people, God bless her, but Councilmember Hollingsworth and the mayor might call us up and say, hey, let's get some folks together, some tip wage employees, and let's talk about what we can do. This, legislation is the art of the possible, and in this case, it wasn't, and we made a mistake. And you and I share, and most of our listening audience agree, the council, it got a little weird. It just was trying to legislate everything from a really polarized perspective. And I don't care if you're on the left, you're on the right. That's not the way to do it. And you don't want to legislate the crap. I don't know if I can say that. The crap out of every restaurant. And also we know we have great business owners in this community. I was just meeting the other day with Doug Baldwin. Oh. You know what Doug does in his free time?
Doug volunteers and has a nonprofit organization that helps out with various members of the community. And Karen, specifically what he does, I know that he gets pulled in a bunch of different directions, but he advises businesses. So there's a coffee shop, a chain called Boom Boona, a really great startup run by an incredible entrepreneur. And he has been helping him. And the big question right now is how are we going to deal with the increases in the minimum wage? How do we deal with the cost of labor? And that's a question I see at every business that we advise. And one of the things that, John, you and I like to do in our lives is give people agency to make good decisions.
And if we put people in a straitjacket and say, this is the only way you can do business in Seattle, they're not going to succeed. And the businesses that we love that define this city will go away. And there's a lot of phenomenal places. There's a lot, didn't your restaurant in Seattle just win the best restaurant in the country award? I mean, I love so many places in this town, and I miss a lot that went away. But I think we should all focus on what it's going to take for the restaurants that are here and the restaurants that friends of ours want to open and thrive, or to continue to thrive.
Okay, so outside of the legislative body, is there something that the people that care about Seattle, the uniqueness of Seattle, and wanting to maintain that, is there something that they can do other than go to a city council meeting and yell and scream, or try to advocate for a less restrictive or draconian efforts by that council? You mentioned Collingsworth. I think she started out with trying to stop the advance of the $20, and then basically kind of gave over, and then that thing went into place. I don't know if necessarily the people that are on that city council understand the dynamics and the margins and the cost of legislating businesses as a third party with no real skin in the game. That's always been my problem with the minimum wage. I don't know if they understand.
We're missing people like, you and I go back in time. There was at one point, Jan Drago was a small business owner, and she came to the council. And I think Councilmember Hollingsworth brings that perspective. What's it like to meet, to have a product that's really compelling to the public, but also to have a bunch of employees whose livelihood it depends on you. And that's a delicate balance. I don't think we should dictate to people what they should do as much as we have been. I think we should give them boundaries and define success, but give people more flexibility so that, Cafe Lago, a higher end restaurant in Montlake, can do business its way, and Molly Moon's can do business its way, and Cafe Vita can do business its way. Instead, we're not seeing these restaurants as unique and individual and having different needs and different headwinds. We also don't want to, in my lifetime in Seattle, restaurants have now gone to either fast service or priced at a pretty high premium. And I'd like to have that missing middle back there. I want those restaurants that you can go in and have lunch for $12, not get a tip screen thrown at you. I'd like that place to become a reality again, and it's something we should fight for.
Okay, but the train has left the station, and the $20.
No, I don't.
Wait a minute, Thomas. Thomas,
that's not true.
Well, what's that not true? January 1st, these things went into effect. January 1st.
Yeah, you know what? Laws are created, laws are amended, and laws are changed.
Aha.
And I sense that the coalition of the willing is gathering right now.
You do?
Of course. Why not? Let's look. You and I had a conversation a while back. There was a time in Seattle history where Lake Washington was polluted. A bunch of people got together. We cleaned it up. We're a city of ingenuity. We just need to focus back on the ingenuity in the middle, ingenuity in the small business. We've been doing it at scale around the country and around the world. And the businesses, Costco, what a model, right?
Right.
We have so many companies that the world emulates. But we got to pay attention to the folks who run the small business, the $1 million business, the $12 million business. You think about a Cafe Vita. It's a signature brand that's housed right here. It's run by people who are amazing. When you talk to those baristas and you find out what they do besides their job, you're like, God, I love my 1 minute with them. I love that I'm talking to Amanda for a minute. I'm so psyched. I love the dynamic that is why we choose to live in a city.
Okay, let's talk about baristas for a moment. It was never supposed to be, I don't think with the design of the job and the productivity level of being a barista, I don't think it was ever supposed to be a career. But if you talk to people that know Cafe Vita, they'll tell you their managers are making $85,000, and some of their baristas are also making, a considerable amount of money. And the idea is someone going to be willing to pay $8 for a cup of coffee at some point? what will happen is just the laws of economics. People will buy less coffee because the prices are too high, so they'll make changes in their life and have their coffee at home, or they'll go to McDonald's or something like that. So even a great place like Cafe Vita begins to have to look at make some hard choices as to how they're going to make the margins work on this sort of stuff. But we can argue, or we can have a conversation about the train leaving the station. You believe eventually legislation could change, but at a certain point along the way, there will be, unfortunately, businesses that will be folding up. And you know from your work, Thomas, that especially a small proprietor, they get in there at 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't leave until 1 o'clock in the morning. They think, breathe, act every single moment. They're constantly thinking about that business that they saved all their money for. And it's mom 100%. And dad. And the date that they have to decide, that's it. I've got to close the door, lock the door, and walk away with all of the loans and all of the damage that's been done. What about all of those businesses between the time you and I are speaking to the time legislation or laws begin to change? How do you get government out of, and a third party that has no financial responsibility to that business? How do you get those people to step back and realize you're not going to fix the housing problem, meaning cost of housing is too high, so therefore we're going to force everybody to pay somebody $20 an hour to make a cup of coffee?
I think one of the most important things that you and I know is key to a successful whatever it is, a successful ministry, a successful governance is to listen to people. And I think we haven't been listening. We listen often to the crankiest, the loudest, the farthest on the extreme in Seattle. We got to stop doing that. We got to listen to the vibrant middle. We got to listen also to the people who've invested their livelihood and their time to make these businesses a reality. There is, we have these kind of externalities that are really important. We have, how many people are going to come to town with FIFA? 2 billion? Yeah. A lot of folks are about to arrive in town who are going to want to have an experience that's truly a Seattle experience. The experience that when you get to Seattle, you want it to be defined by these proprietors who love what they do. The sign at the market at Pike Place says, "Meet the Maker."
Yes.
And that's sort of that's the way we approach things. That's the history. That's why the Nordstrom label is on the Nordstrom clothes. That's what we need to do. Let's spend some time carefully listening to folks who've invested their livelihood in the city. Let's support them.
So you see,
I feel that way about a lot of issues. I mean, we could pivot over to how I feel about bus drivers after what happened, last year. And we got to listen to those drivers. We got to be really supportive of them. We got to really, your producer and I often ride the same bus.
Yes.
So the number 2 goes by his house. It goes by my house. We have a history on that bus of always greeting the operator. And now we have to make sure the city and the county are investing in safety for our transit operators. These things are critically important to our city. I think what I like right now is I think we're poised to do better.
Yes.
And that's the call I think that's most clear. I love this line that I will get wrong, but cities have the capability of providing something for everyone only because and only when they are created by everyone. That's a Jane Jacobs quote. And I just think that's the way we see Seattle. Seattle is this place where it's a new frontier city with incredible roots, with incredible tradition, with so much promise. And we lost sight of a few things in the middle that are really important, but we're starting to invest in things that are making difference. I see that.
So,
and I'll tell you, the business owners I work for,
yeah,
they are the greatest champions for Seattle. Somebody like Tuda Bella and Joe Fugere,
yes,
somebody who runs Seattle has. You've talked to them, you've had them on your show.
Yeah.
Seattle's full of champions who love this town, who love it and want it to thrive. And we're getting on the same page. I'm also really bullish about Bruce Harrell.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
What in particular do you like about Bruce? Have you seen, because you speak to him sort of away from the microphone, it's going to take a little bit of time to change the perception, because that perception becomes the reality for so many people. They write off Seattle as I'm never going to go there, or I'm going to move away from Seattle. So Bruce Harrell has to be able to quiet the trolls that come after him, but at the same time, he has to be strong enough to direct the city in another way. Do you like what he's doing, and do you think his effort to get a new police chief in there and to change the culture, because you can't have a city without civility, and civility comes with people that are willing to have laws enforced. So you say Harold is as the mayor that's going to take us into this new generation of a brighter Seattle?
I think like Charlie Royer and Norman Rice and other mayors in our history who were really strong, he's learned a lot. And he's learned a lot in his first administration. And I think he's going to apply that to some of the toughest problems. I'll tell you, I love the CARES team and the work they're doing.
Yes.
It's like God's work. I see them out there providing help and support for people. It's really amazing. I also think, you and I, with you have a big bully pulpit, I have a small one, but we got to be careful not to listen to the whatever it is on either side. I'm leaving Seattle. Seattle's horrible. Yeah. Seattle's perfect.
Yeah. All right, Joe. All right. Well, listen, Thomas Goldstein from Goldstein Associates. Whenever I'm feeling down or if I get some bad news about this, I will call you.